Interesting. All right. Yeah, I asked that question because I knew you had done some crazy stuff in New Year's. Same here, right? I think back to not as crazy as as yours, but those that know me, I'm a very risk adverse person. I'm not like Jonathan, where I just run towards red flags and dangers and all that. I try to
It's
avoid
fun that
that at
way.
all cost.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Sixth Street Podcast. Jonathan Keel and Noe Tamez. Glad to talk to everyone today. Topics today actually are going to be revolving around, since it's end of the year, kind of a recap of 2025 and some predictions we have for 2026.
And as you can tell, what is it? It's the 23rd of December, so I didn't comb my hair. I'm wearing a t-shirt and a cap today. I'm going to try something new for this podcast. But
I like it.
but since this video is all around predictions of 2026, I figured what would be a good question to start this off with? And knowing Jonathan, I thought, let's talk about this. What is the craziest New Year's experience that you've had, Jonathan, in your past?
Uh-oh. um, that's interesting. I feel like I have a few, but I guess I'll go deep back into 1999. I was in college, soon to graduate, and I don't know, people watching this, whatever, might remember the whole Y2K bug, and everyone thought like, planes are gonna fall out of the sky, and whatever, like elevators would stop working, there'd be pandemonium, whatever. But I had the greatest idea that I was going to go to New York City, right, with all those people and watch the ball drop,
Yes.
and usher in the year 2000. That would be a really great opportunity to see the world burn or
To
something. Huh?
live life to the fullest.
Live life to the fullest. But I will say what happened though. It wasn't so it was like kind of crazy. But then what happened is my mom. So this is gonna make it less interesting. But my mom called while I'm there, like panicking, like you can't be there, like you gotta come back before the end of the year because the world's gonna go up in flames. So I had to then
Wars are
like,
going to start.
yeah, where's gonna start, whatever. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like, but I had all these plans, you got flight and everything. But no, I ended up like because she was really freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, like I better. So I ended up changing my plans and coming back like a few days before New Year's just to make sure I missed it. So I didn't actually
Oh,
see.
okay. So you weren't actually there when it happened.
No, I wasn't there when it
Okay.
happened. I was very, I still kind of, looking back, seeing that nothing really bad happened. No planes fell out of the sky or anything. I kind of wish I would have stayed, but whatever. At least my mom didn't have a heart attack. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I didn't realize that. I mean, I vaguely remembered that whole story, but I guess I forgot that you came back early. Okay.
it still was crazy because I had to change everything. But I'm sort of glad one aspect because I did not know that when people go for the ball drop and stand in that crowd, I did not know that people wear like, adult diapers and whatever else. Like, you can't go to the
I
bathroom, right? I would have been so unprepared. Can you imagine? I would have been there drinking alcohol and then all of a sudden, like, oh, I gotta use the restroom. And then, there is no place. It was better I came back.
okay. Well, I learned something else about New Year's in Times Square that I didn't realize. They don't show you that when Dick Clark does his show.
Oh, I mean, that's what I've read. So I just assumed, the internet told me. It must be true if it's on the internet.
Yeah, everything on the internet's true. It's one thing we've learned. Interesting. All right. Yeah, I asked that question because I knew you had done some crazy stuff in New Year's. Same here, right? I think back to not as crazy as as yours, but those that know me, I'm a very risk adverse person. I'm not like Jonathan, where I just run towards red flags and dangers and all that. I try to avoid
Fun that
that at
way.
all cost. But yeah, same situation. And just to put it in context, like Jonathan said, I mean, people were really concerned that the world was going to completely crater once the year switched over to 2000. But being in college with my now wife, then girlfriend, we decided let's go to San Antonio. Let's go to a city, because we're in South Texas, in college, and then we decided let's go to a city we don't know, people we don't know. Let's go downtown. Let's roll the dice and see what happens there. And yeah, I mean, we didn't need adult diapers, like you mentioned, Jonathan, but went there, had fun, nothing really happened, and moved on. So that's my crazy New Year's adventure. And you know what? Looking back at it, I'm surprised my parents let me go. They didn't really give me that hard of a time, but yeah, I'm
You
really
weren't.
surprised.
You're saying that was also during the 19.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah. The For the year 2000, New Year's, we went to downtown San Antonio.
well, maybe they weren't too worried about like the end of the world, or I don't know. Not
I
everyone. I
mean,
don't think everyone bought into the whole thing. I mean, a lot of
yeah,
people were
but
scared, but not everybody.
I just remember it was on the news all the time. Like, I mean, it was story after story. Like, our ATM's going to work. Are you going to be able to have money? Are you going to be able to gas up your car? All the stuff that people were concerned about. And luckily, it was a non-event. So,
Yeah, and luckily, some people say that oh, all this work was put into like reprogramming everything. Like a lot of COBOL was rewritten, right? Because it was like 2 digits versus four for the date, and then nothing happened. So some people think, oh, it was all waste, all that money put into it. But then you don't know. Maybe all that
yeah,
work actually
they
caused
fixed it.
no. Maybe they fixed it. No catastrophes.
Yeah. Fun fact, my first programming language that I loved was COBOL. I learned that in college. I liked it a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
I still see stuff about COBOL every once in a while online. I wonder, it'd be really interesting. Well, I don't know, for you maybe, if there's any sort of like mainframe emulators to like, wouldn't that be
Yeah.
cool? Like to have a mainframe emulator on your computer?
I'm sure they have one. There
I
has to
mean,
be one out there.
so you could program COBOL just to live the glory days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been years since I looked at it, but I was pretty good at it in college. That and I enjoyed Fortran too.
You enjoyed Fortran. Oh, I did Fortran. Yeah, that was, I don't know if I would say I enjoyed that, but I did learn, well, my first language I learned was Pascal, and I did like
Mm,
Pascal. I did like Pascal.
I never used that one, so I'm not familiar
I
with
think
it.
it's mainly used for like educational purposes. I don't know, but yeah, I did like that. Well, so I mean, that was an interesting, breaking in the year 2000. But now we're going into 2026, and one of the things I thought we'd do this episode is kind of do a quick recap of 2025. Lots of things happened this year, and it would take forever to go through everything. So I think we're going to go over just some high level stuff and then some predictions for 2026, which is always interesting because it's pretty hard to predict stuff, right? But I don't know. I feel pretty confident with some of our predictions, but I don't know. You want to go first? What you want to do a recap of 2025? What are some high points that you remember from this year?
Yeah. I mean, I had a list, but for time's sake, I narrowed it down to a couple. Um, I think the first thing when I think back to 2025 and technology and the impacts was just the general job market. That's been a story and it continues to be a story. Um, doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of movement in the job market. There's been reductions. A lot of people have lost, their jobs. You go on LinkedIn and it's a little sad, a little depressing at times where you kind of see some of the posts and stories, and I hope that changes. It really does need to change because it's been kind of stuck in the mud, for a while now, and it's just one of those things that we've all kind of gone through it. This one feels a little different. It feels like it's lasting a little longer than I've seen in years past. At least that's the way I'm experiencing it right now, and But that's been one thing that I've seen. I don't know. Have you seen the same thing, Jonathan?
I've
As
seen
far
the same
as
thing, yeah, on like especially on LinkedIn. I swear every day yeah, there's like people I see that are sort of pleading, asking for help, with details that they're going to lose their house or their car being repossessed. It's not like I said. I try my best to like email people, message them like, hey, do you know if there's any jobs available for this person? But it's just it's really tough out there for the tech industry.
yeah.
I agree. When you say just to elaborate, when you say that it lasts a little longer, you mean like just kind of the downturn for the, or you saying that the not the economy, that you say it lasts a little longer. You're saying that the amount of layoffs is just continuing. Is that what you mean by lasting a little longer?
Yeah, I mean, like we've gone through, like we were just talking about the year 2000, right? We had the dot-com bubble. Um, Obviously that we didn't have LinkedIn and all that back then, but as college students, I know I was a college student graduating right at the that dot-com bubble. Still had a few job opportunities, right? Out of college. I did have some options there. And working at Walmart, we saw people coming in,
Mm-hmm.
they were still hiring. It just,
Yeah.
it might have been a little slower than after that, but I mean, might have been slower during that period, but after that, they would just kind of have that, influx of people going in and out at Walmart. And then 2008, that was another big time where there was some reductions and, slowing in hiring. But then, I think it takes companies, a year or two to adjust, and then it kind of slowly starts getting back to normal. But this one, it just feels like, if you think back to it, like 2022, there was kind of a little bump in, um, the IT sector where it dipped. And I felt like there was a drop there, and then it just kind of raised a little bit. And now we're still in this prolonged dip, where it's like there's people, I'm not seeing a lot of people saying, like, hey, I'm changing jobs, or not seeing a whole lot of hiring. In fact, I'm just seeing, um, layoffs, here and
Yeah.
there. It's just like this trickle of layoffs, and I don't see a movement up. Whether it's AI, whether that's just the economy, other events in the world, I don't know, but it just seems like it's a little scarier right now if you're in tech.
Yeah, I agree. It is a little scary. What else? Anything else for 2025?
Yeah, well, the obvious one, right? If you're in Salesforce world, AI everything. Salesforce has gone all in, right? I just see Salesforce pushing all their chips in with AI, right? They got Agent Force. They've been doing updates to their Agent Force throughout the year. Uh, Heck, I'll be honest, Salesforce changes their product name so often that I don't often keep track of every single time when they change these names. But I know, Jonathan, you were sharing with me how it's like, hey, go to some of their product pages. Now it's not just Sales Cloud, right? It's Agent Force Sales Cloud or whatever they call it. It's like they
Agent Force
are
sales, yeah.
Agent Force Sales. They are going all in on AI and agentic and all that stuff. And is it the right move, the wrong move? Don't know, but they are certainly kind of pushing a direction, and they're going to continue to push that direction. Um, and I don't know, it'll be interesting to see where that leads them, and I guess us, in effect, right? Where they go, we go. But that's been interesting, and nothing groundbreaking because there's been AI across the entire IT industry, but Salesforce has certainly, moved that direction.
Yeah. I know when you and I talk about like topics to go into for like this podcast, people don't know this, but behind the scenes, we're like, it'll be a lot of AI topics come up, but then we also don't want to just talk about too much because it feels like everywhere you turn, it's like in the news, it's on LinkedIn, you got Salesforce, like you said, sort of rebranding a lot of their products and even some of their conferences they've rebranded.
Hmm.
Like it used to be Salesforce World Tour New York City. Now it's Agentforce World Tour New York City, for example. That they changed the world tours, and there's been like some sort of hinting at like, oh well, Salesforce changed their name to just Agentforce, which I have a hard time seeing that happening. But you never know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
never
so
know.
a lot of AI topics happened this year. Yeah, those are good ones. Some recap, I guess. I think I'm going to some of the ones I think I have for
Yeah.
2025.
What do you have?
Yeah, so mine are a little I think one of the interesting things is back to AI. You know, when I remember starting the year, a lot of like our clients and even some of the investment firms, like the PE firms, private equity firms that our clients are a part of, we're like just AI everything. Can we like use AI to reduce expenses and cut costs and whatever else? And I just thought, I don't know if that's really going to happen. Um, and like you said, maybe some of the tech job movements because of that. But I know OpenAI and ChatGPT, that was like front and center. There's all these other companies that are doing AI, but everyone was really like, talking about ChatGPT a lot, and they still do. I still use it from time to time. But this year, kind of looking back, it's interesting how things evolved. I feel like in the beginning of the year, it was like a lot of OpenAI and ChatGPT. Then, as you went towards the end of the year, now you're hearing more about Google Gemini and some other ones like Anthropic. Yeah, so it's been an interesting year in AI. That's one of the big shifts I've seen. You know, I'm sure everyone gets tired of this, but tariffs. That was a big thing that happened this year and still continues to be. I was just talking to a client yesterday, and they said they're still getting hit pretty hard with the tariffs and causing a lot of loss in revenue, I should say. So everyone's trying to deal with it in their own way. But I think those tariffs have then caused prices for consumers to go up because not just the tariffs, but kind of they've been on and off, and we've seen supply chain kind of issues, not really issues like we saw during COVID, but like issues. In COVID, we're in lockdown, so it just slowed down the supply chain. But with now, supply chain issues are more like, well, there's tariffs in one country, so companies are trying to figure out how to source their products or materials from another country. Maybe they know there's a tariff going to be placed on them in a month or two from now, so they're like purchasing lots of this whatever product they need right now. So there's been surges in shipping and declines, and so anyway, um, so that's been a big thing. So if I could pick two things, yeah, that were sort of monumental in 2025, and there were many, but like I would say the changing landscape of AI, and also just the amount of disruption that the tariffs have caused and other aspects of everyone's lives and business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one quick thing to add on the AI thing. I have one-on-ones with, architects on our team. And one thing I was surprised to hear is most of them, when they integrate AI into their IDE and they're working on projects, it's not ChatGPT or Gemini that they use the most. It seems like Claude,
Hmm.
Anthropics is the one that they prefer.
Interesting.
Now I know it changes. I think we're all kind of bouncing around and, checking to see which one's going to win out and which one is the best at the time. But I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. That kind of leads me into some predictions for 2026. You think we should go into those?
Let's do it.
Right. Well, so, and I will say this first thing I'm going to talk about is it's not just me. I've been in several like meetings with what was it? It was like a JP Morgan Chase meeting and some other meetings with other partners of ours. And one of the predictions they were talking about was we're going to kind of see more of the same in 2026. Meaning like, right, there's a lot of movement in AI. We're going to see more of that, a lot of changing landscape in that area, and also like just with the tariffs and things like that. So I think um, you know, at a high level, what we'll probably see as a prediction I have is, which is based off other people's predictions, is the things that we had grown to be accustomed to, I guess, this year. A lot of uncertainty. I think a lot of that will still happen next year, but I think businesses are kind of getting used to it. Like they're right, trying to figure out how to plan around it. So whereas before I felt like going into 2025, companies were like, "Oh, we're not gonna, we're trimming our budgets. We're not gonna spend any money because we're not sure what's gonna happen." Right? But you can't do that forever. Businesses have to grow and innovate. So I think you'll see more of the same in terms of like the disruptions and whatever and changes in the market. But I also think companies are going to be better prepared this time around and probably start reinvesting it in. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
That's one of my predictions. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It just, if I were to just summarize it, it does feel like more of the same is the best way to describe what I'm expecting it to do 2026. But yeah, as 2025 unfolded and, there was these new initiatives, new policies, all this stuff. It did feel like things were a little bit frozen, but I think it's starting to thaw out a bit, and hopefully that continues into 2026. Now that we kind of know, how things are going to operate, I think businesses can better plan for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and better plan for it. And then on the AI front, like we kind of talked about, there was a lot of changes, from like working with ChatGPT, and I think Google seems to be coming out ahead. And in my opinion, with a few things, I think OpenAI has to kind of catch up. So I'm sort of predicting to see Google, and not just Gemini, but they have other products, right? So like, what's it called, Nano Banana, like whatever it is, or Banana.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I know.
yeah, there's a lot of, I think, there's Notebook LM. You use that a lot, and that's
Yeah.
and I know a lot of people use that a lot. So I think there's all these tools that Google is kind of playing around with, and they're innovating, and they're doing it very quickly, and they sit on the top of a lot of data. So my predictions is that they'll probably start to keep innovating, and OpenAI has a lot of catching up to do. That's like on the sort of the business side and also general purpose, and I think that we'll see more of like Anthropic and Claude, like you were saying. Anthropic's uh, AI tool seems to be doing really well in the coding sense. So I do predict that. I don't know. I'm not saying OpenAI is going to go away, but I think that they're going to have to fight to have, not lose relevance in the, near future, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a battle on their hands. I don't know, like we have our marketing meetings and seeing some of the tools that, you know, others are using for the marketing, creating videos, the images, all that stuff that Google provides and Gemini. Yeah, I'm blown away, especially even the course over this year, how we've seen like, okay, we started off, created some simple things, and then towards the back half of this year, I'm like, wow, this stuff is really taking off. Like that's definitely one side where I can see a lot of change, as far as like the whole marketing aspect, how AI is changing that, and enabling smaller teams to do a lot more that was unheard of a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this isn't really to that point, it's not really a prediction that I was going to talk about, but I do feel like generally speaking, because AI does help, your team, that um, uh, at least in our space, like the consulting space, I'm sure it works with other companies too, but in the consulting space, I can see that smaller teams can do more, right, with the tools, whether it's coding or AI. And I think like larger companies, that let's pick like a global SI, right? They have a lot of people, and it's a lot to manage. And you would think, well, if they use AI, they could do more too. But I don't know. I feel like AI really helps the smaller companies and smaller teams if they use it right. Right? We can compete against. I mean, we already do compete against these larger firms, but I think it even puts us in a better position. We have less cooks in the kitchen to get the work done, but now everyone's like got this sort of, whatever super powered AI bot with them, like that helps them out. So, I think it really helps
Yeah.
companies like ourselves.
Yeah, we can be very nimble with it. We don't want to be like McDonald's that releases that AI commercial and then they have to take it off because people were like making fun of it.
Was that the one with the which one is that the one with the truck that was like driving that like sometimes had like four wheels and sometimes had 18 and I don't know, is that the one? I
I
don't know.
think so. Yeah. I mean, I just read about it and how they had to pull that off there. I was like, you don't want to do that.
I thought you were going to talk about who I don't know what company it was, if it was McDonald's or that had like the AI, like cashier or whatever that took your order,
Oh,
and then
you
they
mean
had to stop
at the drive-through?
the drive-through. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they have that, and then they had to get rid of it.
Yeah. I experienced, not that they got rid of it, but the Kentucky Fried Chicken by my house. I hate that thing because as soon as you drive up, the robotic voice asks you, would you like to try whatever, right? Whatever the special is. And it's like what's the point of having it? Because there's always some person that has to like override it and basically tell it to shut up so you can take the order properly. Because it asks you, like, do you want to try our special? And you say no. So what would you like to order? And then they kind of interrupt it in the middle of all that. It's like, well, why have it if it's not going to work?
It's well, I have not experienced that, so that's interesting. But that kind of leads me into my last prediction, and which is, and I'm not sure if this is going to go all the way this way, but I think it's going to start, which is this prediction that because AI is more of a a non-deterministic type automation, if you want to even call it automation, right? It's a technology, but you can never know what's going to come out of it, right? I mean, heck, sometimes I wonder why I see Salesforce do demos. Are they like nervous? Like, what's it going to do this time? And like you said, when you try and use it in just taking an order, like you don't know what's going to happen. I think what I've seen online and talking to people is that they've realized, while you can, I don't know, on our end, right, in the back end, you're using it for like, maybe reading through PDFs or bouncing off ideas or generating marketing materials. The use of it in like, I don't know, real time interactions, you never know what's going to happen. And so I think it's, I don't know. I think what my prediction is that companies are going to start going back to sort of, I would call it like normal automation. Not that they're going to go away from AI, but I think AI is not exactly where it's going to get there eventually. I think we talked about that,
Hmm.
but it's not there yet. It's definitely like an amazing technology, and we use it, like I said, in the back end to make ourselves more efficient. But I think in terms of how a lot of companies were hoping to use it, like, oh, we can just have our entire, help desk team be AI. I don't
Yeah.
think it's ready for that. Like you need something that you need normal, I call it normal automation where it's just, exactly, kind of if then else. When this happens, this is going to happen. There's no surprises. So I imagine, I believe that you're going to see more of that, like more normal projects with a little bit of AI maybe in there, but I don't think companies are going to be as crazy for implementing AI uh, in 2026 in like customer facing instances, I guess.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm describing that right.
No, it makes sense to in my head. I'd summarize it as like AI is a little too unpredictable for transactions.
Yeah.
Whatever that transaction is, whether it's opening up a support case or whatever, right? When you got a customer and a person asking it all kinds of different questions, I think it needs to be highly focused until AI is ready for prime time, and it's a little too unpredictable.
Mm-hmm. So I know, yeah, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head besides the ones we already talked about. But I think, I mean, there's been a few companies I know that have like implemented AI and then had to pull it back because it sort of opened themselves up to some sort of like risk, being sued for something, or it gave someone a refund when it shouldn't have, or whatever, right? Like these things, these LMs aren't conscious, right? They're not like aware, so they can't really determine things. They can kind of sort of, but not not consistently.
It's got its purpose, and it'll grow over time.
Yeah. So that's kind of it. That's the predictions I had, I say I had, but I mean, well, there are predictions. Maybe we talked about them before. Yeah, I don't know. Guess that's it. I hope everybody that watches has a happy New Year. Um, Please like and subscribe. We always like seeing, that we some of our videos are catching on. We look at the data, and we're gaining some momentum. So I appreciate everyone that does watch and likes and subscribes. So we'll talk in next time.
Onto those red flags like Jonathan for New Year's.
Yep. See y'all later.
Until next time.